Thank you, Chair, and thank you to you both. I've noticed that the Governor of the Bank of England has talked about not being done in terms of not just its ability, but its willingness to act. Perhaps I can ask you both, and maybe start with Kate. They've talked about QE programs, zero rates of interest, or even printing more money to provide directly to households. And I wonder if you have any views on whether you think this actually might be necessary, because we use unprecedented a lot, but do you think there's more unprecedented action that the Bank of England might be able and willing to take?
I think we probably need to see what happens with the support they've already provided first, basically, and how the other forms of government support are getting directly to support individuals and businesses. I think it's good that the Bank of England hasn't ruled out further action, but I think probably I wouldn't want to speculate on kind of, monetary financing, the appropriateness of those measures at this stage, because I think we're still trying to assess at the moment how the support that has already been provided, but is very much in its early days. It feels like a long time ago, but I think it's just over a week since we announced the job retention scheme, since that was announced. So I think we need a bit of time seeing how those measures bed in before we look at those kind of really extraordinary measures and their suitability.
What about Rain? Do you have some views on that?
Thanks, Julie. I think for me, the most immediate challenge is the stranded middle of companies. We know, as both the Bank of England and the Chancellor have set out, that there's about 4,500 companies, or around 20% of all businesses, who aren't eligible either for the CBIL, the business interruption loans, or for the Bank of England scheme. And I think finding a support mechanism for those companies quickly and efficiently is hugely important to employment around the regions in the UK. So for me, that's the absolute priority. I think, when it comes to more innovative policies, I think it's great that both the Chancellor and the Governor have said, essentially they're ready to do whatever it takes to support the economy. I think what is sensible that they haven't tried right just now is making some direct transfers to all households, because I think what we're seeing at the moment is actually, people are spending too much on food and retail where they can get it, and that is putting huge pressure on being able to get some of those goods to those who are vulnerable households who absolutely need those. So I think at the moment that's not something we need to look at. But I think, look, if when we do recover and the health measures are alleviated, we then see that the economy is really slow, really sluggish, and for whatever reason isn't recovering as we would expect, that's when I think we probably need to be thinking about more creative measures to support the economy.
Thank you. And again to Rain, please. We've seen the Bank of England act in terms of reducing base rate and the term funding scheme that's been offered. Have you feedback as to how your members have experienced that? Has that filtering through in terms of their ability to borrow and indeed the cost at which they're able to borrow?
So look, having lower interest rates absolutely does help to support the economy. I think the challenge for most businesses is they're kind of fighting bigger fires at the moment than looking necessarily on the individual rate at which they're borrowing. I think for them it's more being able to access some of these mechanisms rather than looking at the price. But I think, look, the Bank of England responding quickly, lowering interest rates has absolutely helped to support the economy. It does make things more challenging for banks because it can impact on some of their profitability, and that's where I think the implementing the term funding scheme, and I probably haven't mentioned that enough so far. I think that was really important, and that was something that the banks were telling us was really important, that if we were lowering interest rates, we were also looking at that term funding scheme, and I think making that really focused on lending to small and medium-sized businesses has been really important.
Thank you. It's interesting what you say about access rather than cost being the priority. I've had in my caseload some businesses, particularly the smaller businesses, almost fear the cash flow effects that obviously it's going to have. And I wondered, they have talked about potentially the cost, not just now, but in the future. And I wondered whether you'd had any experience with the retail banks, not just giving the access to the schemes, but also, for instance, existing facilities, their interest being potentially reduced or even suspended on their overdrafts, for instance.
Yeah, so I know that a lot of banks have looked at, either waiving overdraft fees for a period of time for individuals. They've also looked at, announced mortgage relief in terms of individuals being able to defer their mortgage payments over a period of time. And I think essentially the messages that we've had from banks is, if you are in distress, either as a business or as a household, then get in touch, explain the situation, and they will do what they can to support you. So I think that is the primary message. I think where we're just keeping an eye on, is where there are issues around whether banks are asking for unreasonable demands about whether people have to give personal guarantees, or whether there are any examples of, not unrealistic, what's the appropriate word, unreasonable interest rate charging, given where interest rates are so low. Those are something we're watching. Personally, we haven't had a huge amount of businesses who've said that's been a real issue for them at the moment, but it's certainly something we're watching.
That's great, thank you. And I think I'm done, but I just wanted to reiterate my gratitude to you both for everything that you've been doing over the last few weeks. I know it's appreciated across the business, and certainly across my constituents as well. So thank you.